Stream is live.
Okay, we're live now. Welcome to the Greysheet Market Report Live. My name is John Feigenbaum, and I'm here with Patrick Ian Perez. We are the editors and publishers of the pricing guides, the Greysheet, Redbook, and other numismatic products. And this is while you've seen, hopefully, my videos in the past on, doing price, talking about the rare coin market. We're trying something new today. We're trying a live podcast that people can comment in, and great, we've already seen our first comment, so that means I know it's working. So this is really exciting. We would rather do this live because editing is not really part of our ability skill set anyway. So we would rather go live, hear from everybody, and we will answer questions as we go along. And Billy is moderating in the background, so that's wonderful. So welcome everybody. Let me just introduce quickly for someone who you might not have seen as much lately, Patrick Perez, who is the Chief Publication Officer at Whitman Brands, which means, like myself, he is wearing a ton of hats at this company. But most importantly, we think about pricing all the time, and then we get the publications out. We work with our designers and things like that to make sure these publications get mailed and shipped. It takes a huge team, and we are the point of the spear, let's say. So Patrick, whose official title, like I said, is Chief Publication Officer, is here to talk about not only the market with me. We're going to go back and forth to talk about the market, but we're also, Patrick's going to tell us about some of the great things that are in line over at Whitman. So thanks everybody for joining us. And Patrick, why don't you just jump in?
Yeah, thanks, John. It's really great to be here. First live stream, so really cool. But yeah, I think it's been really exciting in the coin market because there's all this talk of the past. We're already 5 months into the year, and there was all this talk about what the economy is going to do under the new administration and all these different policy changes. And amazingly, the coin market has been almost unfazed. I mean, Stacks and Heritage have already sold a lot, almost as many as last year, $1 million coins, which, yes, it's only one small segment of the market, but it really kind of, I think, always leaks down when you have big coins bringing record prices still. I think that's a huge positive sign.
Right. We really haven't seen yet any kind of noticeable dip in the market. We've had some important auctions. In fact, I would say that the Heritage sale after Central States had some very big coins in it, and I was getting calls from people saying, "Hey, John, you might need to just kind of pause on that particular auction because it's coming at a very stressful time in markets and things like that." And at the same time, those coins did very well. I thought that auction, I wouldn't say it exceeded past auctions, but it definitely exceeded expectations. So
absolutely,
there's just not enough of these coins out there.
Yeah, well, exactly. And if you look again, it's easy to look at the top, but if you look through the whole meat of the auction, everything all the way down to, I would say, $5,000 and nowadays, in a Heritage sale, you almost won't see anything less than that because they just get so many consignments. But I think the strength is top down, and it's obviously a huge chunk of that is fueled by what's been going on in the gold market, just with bullion, with the pricing that has been putting stress on the industry in a certain way. But I also think it's brought so much more attention from the outside, new buyers, bigger buyer base. And sometimes sometimes these people come in with a lot of money to spend right off the bat. So
sure. And any time that we anticipate like the market might soften up, I think there's people who are looking to shore up and say, maybe I can get a bargain in a short-term market squeeze. That didn't really happen. I mean, there were definitely a few bargains to be had, in my opinion, in those sales, but nothing dramatic. And you certainly weren't running the table if you were a bargain hunter kind of thing. So, and I also think that that gold has, calling it softening is softening a little bit, like frozen butter to not so frozen butter at 3,200-ish today, is maybe that makes people feel more comfortable with the markets because, if we had gone from 3,400 gold to $2,400 gold, that would be different.
Yeah, everyone would just slam the brakes. Yeah, absolutely. And if I could just jump into paper money real quick, Heritage had a large auction also with the coins after Central States, and that one's a little bit more. What we're seeing right now in paper money US is this kind of bifurcation of depending on what note the grading service is graded by, which it's almost kind of getting to the point where it's calling for like a blue sheet situation where we would used to have to price coins, and we still do, differently based on what holder there is, unfortunately, because one is just getting so much more than the other, and I, it's become a trend now. At first, it was like, oh, maybe it's just a blip, but it's kind of becoming a trend that other market people that I talk to are like, it's kind of becoming a problem. So,
So who's the strongest then? Help me out because I'm
yeah.
not the
So
paper money guy.
PMG, definitely.
Okay.
Because what happened was with the transition from the old PCGS to the new, some notes did cross, some notes didn't cross, some notes don't cross the PMG, and for whatever reason, and I know people who are aggressively buying PCGS notes because they think that they know how to grade and they think they're graded correctly, but just for whatever reason, the wider market just hasn't adapted yet. So we'll see if those becomes bargains, really good buys later on.
So people feel they can arbitrage by buying PCGS graded notes, crossing them to PMG graded notes, is what you're saying. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
And that's interesting. Right.
Yeah. And even to the point where they're willing to take a point downgrade to get into a PMG holder because the price becomes the same. Right. Which is kind of crazy.
Right. Interesting. Well, let me jump in really quick and there's been already a few questions, and I want to hopefully inspire more questions. So the first question that was asked is, how often are prices adjusted on Greysheet? And I don't know if you're referring to the online Greysheet.com pricing or in print. Obviously, in print it's monthly, and then there's a lead time of about 3 weeks. So you're looking at a significant delay on printed Greysheet, but online, we update, I think, every hour or two, and we peg most of the coins that are priced on Greysheet, if they are, let's say, gold and silver based, are updated against spot all the time. So every hour or two, you're going to see adjustments based on spot. We even have the ability for bidders on CDN Exchange, which is our wholesale dealer exchange, to bid, let's say, for MS65 Saints based on spot. They can actually do spot-based bidding, which means that even what we call generic gold can change with that. We haven't seen too much adoption yet, but I really feel like that's going to happen. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and say that a lot of times I'm touching world coin and world currency pricing, and that sometimes doesn't go noticed because we don't print it yet, and we don't have major publications are surrounding, except for we do have the banknote book, which is a tremendous resource. But just to add to your question or to add your answer, we're touching pricing daily. Yeah.
This is really great. So Dan asked I'm wondering how we handle pricing for coins in the $25 to $200 range.
Yeah.
Falling short of, I mean, right, like Patrick said, I mean, probably less than $1,000 or something. You're almost not seeing almost anything now in auction. How do we know? So we use a couple things. One, we use CDN Exchange. For example, let's say you think that barber dimes in MS63 are too inexpensive on Greysheet. You would always pay $20 more. You can go on that site and say to the world, I'm a buyer at such things, and then we will pick up those bids. And that's a way a lot of things are being handled. And then, of course, we also get a lot of feedback from people. But, we could always use more feedback. Like if, in other words, you're paying, if you're a buyer of AU Buffalo Nickels for any day, we would like to know if you're paying more than Greysheet. And people do inform us in a lot of ways. So that's a big part of it. What we see, something I will observe and tell you about, is that there's much more market making for CAC coins than the non-CAC. Really, it's that doesn't show up as much on Greysheet, because Greysheet, let's say, is more of this kind of, let's say, mid plus what we used to peg to a PCGS price guide. Let's say PCGS coins represent what Greysheet should be, and this is something we should talk about a little today. But we're seeing some variances all of a sudden where I don't know which way that goes. But CAC has its own price line. Greysheet has its own price line, which is, let's say, call it PCGS. And then we have a blue sheet for PCGS and NGC, which is when there's that bifurcation. And usually the blue sheet for PCGS is going to match the gray sheet. That's where we've been. Although I've had to start separating those a bit, where people are saying, listen, I'll buy a high relief in AU58. One just sold at auction for 11,000, or and that what coin wasn't the quality I want, and I'll pay 12,000 for one I do like. And so therefore we'll make, if we like that argument, we'll make that gray sheet is 12,000, and then we'll have a blue sheet of 11,000 for we used to call that sight unseen. There's really no such thing as sight unseen. No. There is for CAC coins. There's still enough of a support base for CAC, but not so much, I don't think, in NGC and PCGS.
Right. And I would just add another good resource for the quote inexpensive coins are the dealer bid sheets, which some of the big market makers still use, and we do look at those and evaluate them kind of in our own way.
Right. And when we talk about dealer bid sheets, a lot of times we're talking about, let's say, the famous Littleton buy sheet, and the Littleton buy sheet is almost CAC-ish in a sense, because they just represent a sort of really selective group of coins. And so if they want a 1914D, Lincoln cent and VF, it better be a cherry, which is kind of how we describe CAC coins these days. So it almost alleviates that problem for us. But they do bid on a lot of coins, like roll bids and things like that, which are also hard to find. So interesting. So let's see. CAC won't list coins that have been reviewed but still charge is a ripoff. Gary, I mean, I see your comment about the CAC, and I think that's something to take up with the folks at CAC. I think that the reason that I've spoken with John Albanese about, in terms of that's a 10-year-old decision that he made. And, what they really don't want to do is ruin a coin. I mean, what you say is like, I have a $50,000 coin, I've submitted to CAC, and it didn't sticker. They're trying not to hurt the market value of that coin. That's what he's always told me. I don't think that's a ripoff. I think getting an expert like John Albanese to look at your coin for, I don't know how much he charges, $25 or $100, whatever he charges, to look at a coin to tell you if it's CAC worthy is worth that money. It's not a lot of money, but that's my opinion. And Hunter, thank you for canceling your dentist appointment. That's we love you too. So one topic I wanted to talk about that we get a lot of feedback on or questions about year over year is will we ever do plus pricing? Will we ever get into plus? And Patrick, I'll just give you first stab before I give my usual answer. Yeah. You'll alter that.
Well, one of the reasons was it makes it nearly impossible. If you use the traditional theories of one grade price can't be higher than the next grade up, it makes it pricing almost impossible, because so many times, if you pick, depending on what series you're talking, a 65 plus always brings more money than a straight graded 66 in certain cases, or an AU58 coin will always bring more than 62, 63, sometimes 64, because of registry collecting, because of just people's desire to have plus coins. And so if you have 5 coins in 65 plus that sell for $12,000 and 66 bid is 10, well, what do you make 66 bid if you want to still observe these laws of not having prior grade numbers higher than the ones after? To me, that's the most difficult thing to chew on.
Right. I mean, and that's a really excellent point. I mean, the AU58 plus, as we've talked about, is sort of the holy grail of certain registry collections, and people will pay almost any reasonable number for such a thing because it represents the highest possible grade in a circulated set, and therefore, it beats other AU58s. And these grading services are very few and far between where they'll give an AU58 plus. So therefore, those get kind of the outlier status of what they sell for. I just think that the only pluses that really seem to matter, in my opinion, are the ones where it's pop top. So the commemorative and 68 plus or 67 plus, and then what is an Iowa in 64 plus worth? Who cares? I mean, I say that. I mean, it matters a lot to certain people, but it's worth somewhere. in theory, let's say by logic, like you say, somewhere between 64 and 65.
Right.
And a lot of times, it'll sell right between those numbers. And a lot of times it'll sell right at 64. If it doesn't have a registry component or there's nothing compelling. And I feel that I've seen a lot less pluses being graded in the last 5 years. And I don't have a hard date on that, but I don't see them in auction. I just don't think that there's a lot of these plus coins really out there that the grading services kind of got into it. It's been 15 or 20 years since they first introduced plus, but it just like it's not part of it's too many grades. It's just too many grades. Like, just stop it already with the grades is how I feel about it. And just if you're a grading company and if it's a 65, it's a 65. If you can't decide if it's a 65 or 66, so call it a 65. Right. Why are you messing around with plus? Oh, we really can't decide. I mean, which ultimately means that the crackout guys are going to get a hold of that. They're going to look for the pluses because they know the grading room is divided. They know they divided the grading room. So therefore, crack it out, keep resubmitting it, because one day the one guy's going to be sick. They're not going to show up for work, and then they'll 66 it. Or right. That's the game that is played. So I'm not really a fan of pluses in terms of collective assigning value, because I feel like you could figure it out for yourself if if you have enough price points, which we certainly feel like we give.
And for me, it's two things. What you said about not seeing as many of them, that could be also because of the advent of CACG, where a lot of those coins might be going into those holders without pluses. And the other thing too is, for people who are watching this and us, we live in coins, we know it, but we get so many questions from beginners or people who are not just at that, let's say, intermediate stage. And if they open a price guide and they start looking at plus coins and they see that it's higher than the grade below, they get it's a very confusing thing for a novice. Mm-hmm. And even for a not novice. I mean, you could be in coins for 5 or 6 or 8 years and still not really grasp, well, why is this pricing like this? And so, and as an industry that's always trying to bring new money in, fresh money in, you don't want to confuse the consumer. And plus pricing has the potential to be very confusing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you want to confuse the market for sure. Sure. So, no, I think that's great. Another question that I get asked sporadically and worth talking about is this rounding issue, where we have, we might list a coin for, $3,324.73. Why don't we round those things off? Obviously that is probably a $20 gold piece or some coin with an ounce of gold in it. And we're doing some multiplier. We'll say that the market will pay 2% over melt for such a coin, and there's 0.96 ounces in a $20 gold piece. So you start doing all this math and you get to rough numbers. And then you say, well, there's an AU50 and an AU53 is worth $4 more. If you start rounding these things, you just get to an impossible place and you get to imprecise things. And the one thing that I value is precision. Like I love precision. And yeah, I know in a perfect world, we would just say, $14.23 is $14 or something, but it lacks precision when you've got the continuum. That's my thought.
Totally. And that precision is also, to me, more important than making something easy. Because look, in reality, if you're writing up a long invoice, you're probably going to round it anyways. It's a lot, dealers do that. And so it's better to me to have a precise price, because over time, if you're buying and selling using our numbers, which we hope everyone is, and you pay $17 instead of $20, well, $3, if you do that 10 times or 20 times, you're adding or subtracting a fair amount of money to that transaction. I think that's overlooked sometimes with people, because you're saying, price the coins to market. I mean, when you buy a stock and it's $68.50, they don't just round it to 70. You would be pretty annoyed if you had to pay $70 for the stock. So to me, it's the same principle, right? The number is the number, and that's where the transaction should at least start.
Right. And we've tried to round that off. We did it. We did round it off a little bit for the Redbook, which is, an annual publication. It gets, printed months in advance, maybe, 6 months in advance. So there's a lot of lead time where the precision isn't important anyway. So yeah, we're working on ways to round it, but we round the numbers to your detriment in the market, right? That's somehow what we're saying. We're getting some good questions in here. James Bucky, friend of our company. Thank you very much, James. He's done some writing for us. Redbook, will the Redbook Quarterly? So the Redbook Quarterly is our replacement of we had a thing called the CPG Rare Coin Market Review, and we replaced it for better branding purposes to Redbook Quarterly. And James is asking whether we will have all the grades. We will never have room, James, for all the grades, but and online we've got maybe 50 times more pricing than anything could ever be in print. However, we will react to people if we get feedback, and if you email us at editor@greysheet.com or anywhere, support@greysheet.com, and say, I really wish you had an MS66 column or an XF40 column in this series, we would love to know, and we will do our best to make adjustments we adjust almost every time we do an issue in some way, shape, or form.
And that also goes for date ranges too on coins. So I know that we kind of pick where we end dates based on popular collecting or like where our albums end. And as John said, it's always just that tension between page count and postage. You add pages, you add weight, you add postage, and these types of things. But yeah, I mean, we're always trying to look at, maybe we can add another 10 lines or another 20 lines of dates on this series. And so that's, as John said, just feedback, let us know.
Yes. And James actually clarified a little bit and said grades, years, not grades. And that's a good point, James. It's the same answer, which is like, if we hear the request, it can help us adjust. I agree with you. I was actually looking at I think Jefferson Nichols yesterday and realizing that I feel like we stopped too soon in Jefferson Nichols, and so I'm sure it's the same in Lincoln. So we'll based on that feedback alone, we will review that, Patrick and I, after this podcast. Kevin asks, he's been buying at Greysheet at 10% under from dealers as a rule, except for rainbows, for 60 years. Well, listen, we will always, this goes to the larger subject of, are we perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, we can, there's a lot of areas where Greysheet is going to be too low or too high because we didn't catch an area in real time. I mean, for example, Charlotte Delaniga Gold mostly is worth more than Greysheet at this time. If you can buy Charlotte and Delaniga Gold at 10% back at Greysheet, God bless you. You will do really well with that stuff. Now, you could also say the same that New Orleans and San Francisco gold, not as, you might be overpaying. So we do our best to keep up with these things. And I would say if 10% back of gray was the rule, then that would mean that Greysheet was perfect, except 10% too high. And that is not the case. We aim to be at what we feel like the market should pay for items, and 10% back, if you can do it, great. But what we're seeing in this market is that choice original coins from the 19th century through, let's say, early 20th century are almost always now, especially under 500, trading over Greysheet. But that doesn't mean we should raise Greysheet by 10% just to somehow magically be higher, because then what does that mean? The market will be confused. Yeah. We will react when people tell us, hey, I am paying more for 32D quarters in XF than you have. And we say, thank you very much. We will reflect that. Patrick,
one good question.
Go ahead.
How does Greysheet pricing compare to Redbook pricing? I think that's something that's very, very important. And the one sentence answer, Greysheet is wholesale. So intending to be dealer to dealer, buys and sells. And Redbook is collector pricing. What collectors should expect to pay when they go to a coin show or a coin shop. And again, the number from which you start the transaction.
Yeah, and that's Ian. So thanks, Ian, for posing the question. He texted me before, and I really appreciate you joining us today, Ian. He's also asking Patrick, are we gearing Redbook towards certified coins? And I think, well, the answer is, of course, because the market has geared towards certified coins, right? I mean, if the market wants, Silver Eagles and 70 holders, which it does, then it's really meaningless to talk about 70s that are not in holder. And it's the same thing, any coin over a certain amount of money. We believe in this day and time, unless you are an expert yourself, you should buy a certified coin, even if you want it raw. You better know what you're doing, or you better be working with somebody who you respect, like a PNG dealer or somebody who, you can really rely on. Be careful, but valuable coins should be authenticated and graded before you buy them, unless you feel very comfortable.
Right.
What else? Anthony asked about the plus coins, the plus grades. We have that in our dealer software for CDN Exchange, our dealer to dealer, but we haven't thought about doing that for the website, as we are not doing pricing for those. Patrick, why don't you go next? Ian's at the bottom there.
So that the most recent one is the pricing in Greysheet for graded coins or raw coins. Now, that's one of those. If I had $1 for every time I answer this question, so I still, and John, we're obviously we agree. It's that a coin is a coin, right? Now, if you had a coin, if you have a Morgan dollar, an MS64 holder, PCGS, and you had this magic way to take it out of the slab without breaking it, it's still an MS64. So, John, to your point, like if you're working with an expert, whether the coin's raw or is not, he's going to say that's an MS64, and this is the associated price. That's it. There's no specific. Specific text that I used to love, or I still love, that was on the old sheet. It's for any coin that is properly graded.
Mm-hmm. How do we know if it's properly graded? So we don't and maybe the question is really more about like industry consensus. What does properly graded even mean, right? It doesn't mean it's some theoretical idea that that I determined it was properly graded, or you did, but then you go to a coin show and you go up to the first dealer at a show and say, hey, I want to sell my raw MS64, 1921 peace dollar. And the guy says, well, I only grade that MS62. It's got hairlines, or so it's not, he says it's not properly graded, but yes, but I was told, or I cracked it out of a PCGS holder and it was an MS64. So this whole idea of what is properly graded or what is graded is a bit of a myth, and that third-party grading has brought in this comfort that we can do business and we can compare our coins. We say we know the grade and we know what the sheet says, and now we can start debating. Before third-party grading, you were first fighting over the grade, and then you were fighting over the sheet. So now we can say, okay, it's in a PCGS holder, it's in an NGC holder or a CAC holder. The Greysheet guide says X amount. Are you a buyer above or below? I know that I never see, 18th century quarter eagles and PCGS holders, and I'm not selling it below Greysheet, and I'm sure the dealer would agree with you, and he's going to pay strong. So everything matters, and the price guide is just one of them. The grading service is another, and then of course, doing business, I'll add one more thing because it came up at Central States, and we had a customer of Greysheet come up to us, and he was all upset, and he said, listen, I brought my 6 coins. He has 6 coins, Standing Liberty quarters, and for anything from Annex holder, NGC, PCGS. And he says, I was told that the Greysheet was a bunch of crap, and you're laughing because you saw this guy. He was sort of angry guy. And I said, listen, you showed it to one random coin dealer and he tells you the Greysheet's crap and it's worth less. I said, you're not sure. How do you know you showed it to the right people? How do you even know? Did you show it to Jim Stouchestein at Heritage? He's one of the top buyers in the country. So, well, no, I didn't show him. I showed, so-and-so from Oshkosh. Well, it's like, okay, we're all going to debate value and grade and say, but you and I know old NX holders are kind of in premium. We know Rattler PCGS holders are in premium. We know now we say CAC coins stickered on PCGS coins are at a premium. Everything is variable in this business. So it's just at least the price guide gives you somewhere to start, the same way the grading service, not the end all, tells you somewhere to start.
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to bring a little bit of order to the chaos, right? That's kind of always been our mentality, is because it's every coin is its own beast.
That's right. So Ian asked, is the retail pricing that Greysheet does something that'll be consistent in Redbook? And answer, Ian, is yes, absolutely. One of the things that was so wonderful about acquiring Whitman, and it's just been a fantastic organization, and the Redbook is just such a fantastic book, and we aim to make it better every year. And thank goodness we can use our pricing to put the retail pricing, i.e. the Redbook, in there, but also that gives Jeff Garrett, our editor, more time to focus on some of the meat issues that he didn't have time for in past years, to really make the editorial part of the Redbook better. Like, for example, until this year, we never had put in full head quarters, full band dimes, full step nickels. These were just mere footnotes to the Redbook, and these are vital. I mean, it's like, full band dimes, really? Like you're gonna collect gem or Mercury dimes or Standing Liberty quarters and not know about those designations. So we aim to combine. We're always going to combine those two, and we hope that people will subscribe to Greysheet.com and then get our numbers on a very daily basis. Like I said, updated hourly. Use our app. Things like that. We have all these tools. What's next? AI. Why don't you take on AI grading, Patrick?
I was actually talking with someone about this recently. More for paper money because it's a flat object. But I mean, years ago, John, I'm sure you know more of this about than I do. The old PCGS coin sniffer robot program guy that was supposed to happen. But no, I mean, AI is, I think, it will be good enough to grade coins beyond our lifetime. I think it's nowhere close because there's so much nuance to, and the reason why, after having this conversation, the reason why I kind of feel like it's far away for AI grading is because coin grading is illogical, and AI is just completely logical. Like how we grade coins sometimes is not. It can be very scientific, but there's the art to it too, and that's something that's so far very difficult to teach.
But I think you could grade modern coins. Could you not? If you have 10,000, 2025 silver eagles, we should be able to use a computer. And I don't know if this is AI or literally just, a machine that kind of does laser inspection and determines imperfections on a surface, on a pristine surface, and says, okay, if there's 7 of them, that's a 69. If there's 10 of them, that's a 68. 0, anywhere between 0 and 3 is a 70. I don't know. Seemingly that would be very doable, but never for a VF 3-cent nickel, right? Yeah. Never.
No, true. Yeah, if you fed 10,000 images of a 70 and 10,000 images of a 69, it would learn it for sure.
Right. Yeah. Coin Show podcast. That's a great point. I mean, dealers love to drop a lot of money on dinner. I won't even drop names, Patrick, but loves a good bottle of wine. But we're also very cheap about other things. That's very true of coin dealers, and we don't like to spend a lot of money on clothes. At least I don't. So
that is absolutely true with coin dealers. Yeah.
Shoeless 113. No, we have not added for proof like common day coins like 41S Mercs or 41S Walkers, but that is online. Those prices, we are adding pricing and catalog entries for proof like coins all the time. A lot of gold coins come in proof like, a lot of like Liberty Gold and things like that. So for sure, all of those things. But yeah, there's just too many entries. I mean, the catalog. I mean, just Morgan Dollars. Just think about the complexity of Morgan Dollars. You have all the date series, which is, I think it's 120 something coins, maybe. The date and mint mark series, major varieties, and then you say PL, DMPL, and then you say GSA, non-GSA, GSA hard, GSA soft, GSA PL, and then VAMs. And the VAMs seemingly are unlimited. So don't get me started on VAMs. I'll definitely make some VAMs. But I'm not a huge fan of, I think we should figure, the VAM people need to get together and say these 50 matter and the rest, not so important. I wish they would do that. We would love some direction. I'd love some direction like that. What else? So while we're waiting on any other questions, Patrick, why don't you tell us some of the cool books that we've got coming at Whitman? I think that would be a good little segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So already, hopefully, some viewers have already seen, we are already on the market. We have the Redbook series, which was previously marketed under the Bowers series, but we've shifted that to the Redbook series. And that, for people who don't know, just generally speaking, that's our series. That's basically a book on every major U.S. coin type. And so it's an important series. It makes an awesome set, I think. So already on the market, we have an updated edition of Washington Quarters of that book, and also Shield and Liberty Head Nickels. And it's talking, if you want to become an expert in a series, I mean, these are the books for you. You're talking, 250 to 300 pages of everything you want to know about that particular coin. And so Washington Quarters, like I said, and Shield and Liberty Head Nickels are already out. In that same series coming up very soon, we have Pioneer Gold, which is written by the field expert Don Kagan and Mr. McCarthy. And yeah, that's the new. So all of our covers will be common for these books, so you'll know right away what they are. And then in the same series, we'll have Flying Eagle and Indian Head Cents, which is a tremendous book, and then Type Coins, which is going back again for novices. I think the concept of type coins is always difficult to understand at first. So I'm pretty excited about the Type Coin book because it's just a good overview of all of U.S. coinage and kind of what we mean when we say type coins.
I think type coins are really underrated. Somehow, when I was a kid, type coins were so much more of a collect of something that was desired, and now we've gotten very series oriented, I believe. But the collector of this elite collection, for example, who's been posting on the PCGS chat room in the last week or so with his collection of 100 greatest coins that I think he works with Ian over at Great Collections, and he's finally revealed this collection, one coin at a time. He's trying to reveal what's in there. And this is a type collector, right? This is someone who's saying, I can collect 72 barber quarters, but I got the O1S and MS67, and I don't know if he has that, but I just, get the most magnificent coin of a certain series, or in the 100 greatest book, which is I think where that collection starts with, which is, really great. I mean, what a great feeling that someone is attempting to build a collection of 100 greatest U.S. coins, especially since, the Smithsonian has some that no one else does. But it's just really great. I think type coins are underrated from that standpoint. If I were to go back to collecting, it would just I don't need to get every shield nickel, but I would probably go after the 1880. I would go after the key dates in every series and try to have something really special there. But so hopefully I look forward to that book. I always look forward to these books. It's like a kid in a candy store to be a part of Whitman now and foster along these projects where we work on some of the most bizarre things that some people would think are bizarre, but this is what we love about the business. So for example, Patrick and I are currently working with an author on so-called dollars. That book hasn't really been redone in probably 20 years, and maybe not really for 40 or 50 so-called dollars. They're not even really coins, right? They're tokens and metals, and but they're important to us and a lot in the industry. We're working on, as you said, the Pioneer Gold, with Kagan, and we will do, and you're doing a book on, like the book on obsolete paper money, starting with New York. We're picking up that series that Bowers had started, and what a voluminous amount of items that is. I had no idea, but we are here. Whitman and Greysheet we're just more interested in supporting the hobby and bringing information to people than we are about the bottom line. Luckily, we can make this work with the bottom line, and that's the key. But where, we have to be able to afford to do this, but we're here because we love this hobby.
Yeah. And just picking up on what you said with the obsoletes, some other, paper money obviously is my love and what I personally collect. And very soon we'll have a book on the shelves about paper money errors that we were doing with the field expert, Dr. Fred Bart. And it's a wonderful book because you're not going to be able to find that information anywhere else, right? And it was a book that was done, I think the previous one was 8 years ago, give or take. So, all updated. This one is in full color. It's never been in color before. And, just even paging through the book and seeing all the different types of ways that paper money can come erroneously is just cool in itself. So those types of books. And then going into other categories, there's a book that Whitman had published in the past in conjunction with Art Friedberg, called Modern World Coins, which covers world coins from basically the 1850s up until 1964. So that's in the works to reissue that book and possibly extend the dates a little bit, bring it past 1964, depending on how much space we have to work with. But, in the absence of the Krause books, I get asked all the time, when are you guys going to make, first of all, we always get asked, did you guys buy Krause? Well, obviously we didn't. And those books are gone. They're extinct, fully extinct. And so
yeah,
we're very much looking to pick up that slack and create books on world coins, because a lot of people, it's difficult for people to do business without a standard reference.
Right. And nor were those books, I mean, I know this is sacrilege, but nor were those books really that great. I mean, they were good, they were comprehensive, and they were like phone books, but they weren't, there was a catalog number, like a KM number for the entire series of sovereigns for a 40-year period. This is very imprecise. I mean, so we need, the problem is, once you start getting into this detail the way that we do, when it comes down to the research we do, every coin is a unique identifier for us. And then there's an overdate, or then there's a proof-like version. So we don't just get into a series very quickly. We have to really add a lot of items for it. So I think the old days of doing things like a Krause catalog are just kind of gone in a certain way. Patrick, there's a great question for you on Shoeless 113, which is what I would give for a Redbook Mexican coin. So I'll let you answer that one.
Well, fortunately, we have a huge suite of Mexican coin pricing already on our website, but that is, I would say, very, very high on my list to make a comprehensive book on. We would start with 20th century Mexico, which is 1905 to 1992, so the establishment of the Fifth Republic or the Fourth Republic to the reform coinage of 1992, and then going backwards. Obviously, what everyone wants is Second Republic, the 8 reales, all the cap and rate denominations, the state coppers, and it's all feasible. We have the data in some form. It's just a matter of getting it on the calendar and more importantly, working with the experts, both in this country and abroad, to help us with pricing, because that's what people are looking for. And so many of those coins nowadays are trading in certified holders. So it doesn't fit the bill nowadays to just price VG, VF, and UNC like all the old world coin books. You have to price in 65. You have to price in 63. You have to price in AU, because there's now material differences in the pricing. One great example is just the 4-coin Caballito set. Well, a little bit more if you include the varieties. And I think we have pricing in those in 15 grades, because they trade often. You can find the auction results. You can find, retail wholesale pricing, but even maintaining the pricing on those 4 coins is something that needs attention. So, but no, Mexican coins are very high on our list to create publications for.
And I don't know if everybody knows, but we did a reprint. This book had been out of print when we took over at Whitman. Yes. And this is the Don and Lois Bailey book on Mexican coins is the current standard, at least to give you some idea. Is it the Red Book? It's not. There's almost never the Red Book of anything, but we aim to do that for sure, and we're already starting to build it out on our website, so you can go there if you have a subscription, or you can even look around for free to see how we've done that. And we've had some real help on those caballitos and things like that. And again, it's not an area that I know a lot about, but I'm very fascinated with it. And a lot of the dealers, shop owners, are telling me that one of the highest demand coins in their shops are Mexican coins right now. So I think there's a lot of runway for that series. Absolutely. So anyway, let's just close on so Mega Red. We get a lot of questions about Mega Red. I don't think we touched on that, but we had to skip a year because when we took over, it's been almost only 18 months since we took over and tried to figure out how everything operates at Whitman and the publishing cycles. And we had to pause on Mega Red number 10. I think the 9th edition is out. and it's not labeled by year because the team just couldn't. We wanted to redo the Redbook first, which we did, and so now this year Patrick is looking into how are we going to do Mega Red next. So that's coming for people who are curious. And then Cherry Picker, also to us, a series that needed a complete revamp. Like this is a very important series. Varieties are so significant, and it has a lot of cachet. Yet it took too long between editions in the past. So we are working with a new. We're at the last stage of working with a brand new editor who's passionate about varieties and is someone that can be approached and say, and so people can say this variety should be included, where in the past we hadn't heard such good things. So we are going to make transparency, and hopefully, this is my dream, an annualized edition of the Cherry Picker book in one book, so that every year there's kind of like a one big spiral bound, let's say, of the new Cherry Picker, and everybody will want that. That's what we hope to build.
Absolutely. And yeah, and just to round out on Mega Red, it will still be Mega, but there will be changes, to make it more user friendly, and not only user friendly, but more efficient for us to create, so that we can make new editions on a more regular basis.
Right. So we're really excited about all those things, and we really appreciate everybody joining us today. I think it's a perfect jump off, and we hope to do this on a regular basis. I don't know if every week is possible, but every 2 weeks could be possible. And everybody giving us questions is fantastic. And we want to grow this audience. We know that the audience size matters. So tell your friends, sort of thing. We will, Miss Numismatist, we will take your question to the next podcast and to talk more about AI. I think what we'll also do, Patrick, is bring in some people. We'll bring in someone who's really good about AI. There's and guaranteed to be under the age of 25 and talk to us about AI in the future of numismatics. By the way, there's some incredibly smart, very young people in this hobby. That's just amazing. So we're going to bring light to a lot of these topics, and thank you again for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. And I don't even know how to turn this off. Do we, Billy? So
thanks, everyone.
Everybody.